Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between the mountains and the vast desert, there lived a man named Anand. Anand was not an ordinary man. He was a seeker, not of wealth or fame, but of meaning. From a very young age, Anand felt an irresistible attraction to something deeper, something inexplicable that seemed to whisper to him in the silent spaces of the night. He had read countless sacred texts, sat at the feet of wise men, and searched for answers everywhere possible. However, the answers always seemed to slip away from his grasp, like fine sand between his fingers. Anand was known in the village for his ceaseless search. He spent hours meditating, reading, and conversing with the elders, but with each step he took towards the truth, he felt further away from it. The frustration grew within him like a shadow stretching at dusk. He wondered why, despite all his efforts, the truth felt so elusive. One day, tired of life's contradictions and of the answers that never came, Anand decided it was time to take a drastic step. He had heard of a sage named Mati, who lived isolated in the mountains, far from the noise of the world. They said Mati possessed the wisdom of ages and could answer the deepest questions of the human heart. With a mix of hope and despair, Anand embarked on his journey. The ascent to the highest peak of the village was arduous, but Anand was determined. He climbed rocks, crossed streams, and finally reached the summit, where Mati's cabin stood surrounded by wildflowers. As he approached, he saw Mati sitting in silence, her eyes closed as if she was in communion with the very earth. Anand, breathless and exhausted, approached Mati with a mix of reverence and desperation. He knew this might be his last chance to find the answers he had sought for so long. Mati, seated in silence, seemed to be in a state of deep meditation, her eyes closed and her breath calm and rhythmic. Unable to contain his anxiety, Anand broke the silence with a question he had carried for years. "Why do I suffer, Mati?" Anand asked, his voice trembling with despair. "I have sought answers my whole life, but the more I search, the more lost I feel. What is the meaning of this existence?" Mati opened her eyes slowly, as if she had been waiting for this question for a long time. Her gaze was serene yet penetrating, and she smiled with a tranquil understanding. "You suffer because you believe there is something to be found," Mati said gently. "You search as though there is a destination, a truth that will explain everything. But life is not a riddle to be solved, Anand. Life is absurd." Anand furrowed his brow, confused. "Absurd? What do you mean by that? Does life not have inherent meaning?" Mati continued, her voice as calm as the wind through the trees. "The universe does not owe you an answer, Anand. It simply is. Seasons change, rivers flow, people are born and die. Yet, we pursue purpose as if it were an elusive treasure. But that treasure is an illusion." Anand felt a wave of disappointment. He had dedicated his life to the search for meaning, and now he was being told that all of it was in vain. "Then what is the point of living if there is no meaning?" he asked, his heart heavy with disillusionment. Mati smiled again, this time with a depth Anand had never seen before. "Ah, but this is the beauty of it, Anand. Freedom does not come from finding meaning, but from accepting absurdity, from realizing that there is no grand purpose waiting for you. You are free, Anand, free to create your own meaning. You are not bound by anyone's expectations or beliefs. You are the creator of your own life." Anand sat down beside Mati, his mind in turmoil. He had always believed there was a higher order, a plan that would reveal itself if he searched hard enough. But now, Mati's words were challenging everything he thought he knew. The idea that life was absurd and without inherent meaning was both terrifying and liberating. "But if life is absurd, then everything I've done until now has been in vain?" Anand asked, his voice laden with doubt. All the books I read, the rituals I practiced, the gurus I followed. Was all of it useless? Mati looked at him with deep compassion. No, Anand. None of what you have done was in vain. Every step you took, every book you read, every ritual you practiced, everything was part of your journey. But the journey is not about finding an absolute truth. It is about discovering the truth within yourself. Anand reflected on this. He thought about the countless days and nights he had spent searching for answers, the moments of frustration and the rare moments of clarity. Perhaps, as Mati suggested, the search itself was the problem. Perhaps he had been running from a truth that had always been before him. That life was neither fair nor cruel, neither purposeful nor purposeless, but simply indifferent. Imagine Anand, said Mati after a long silence, a man who pushes a rock up a mountain, only to see it roll back down every time he reaches the top. He does this incessantly, knowing that the rock will never stay at the top. Some would call that man cursed. But what if, instead of lamenting his fate, he found joy in pushing the rock? What if he realized that the struggle itself is his freedom? Anand thought about the endless days he had spent searching for meaning, in the books, rituals, and gurus he had followed. Perhaps the act of searching had been the rock he was pushing up the mountain, only to see it roll back down time and time again. But now, sitting there in the mountain's quiet, he was beginning to understand that the rock had never been his curse. It had been his liberation. Anand felt a profound shift within himself as he reflected on Mati's words. The metaphor of the man pushing the rock up the mountain resonated in his mind, and he began to see his own journey in a new light. He had always believed there was a greater purpose, a plan that would reveal itself if he searched hard enough. But now he realized that the search itself could be the source of his suffering. Perhaps the search for meaning has been the rock that I pushed up the mountain, only to see it roll back down, time after time, Anand said, his voice laden with newfound understanding. But now, I understand that the rock was never my curse. It was my liberation. Mati smiled, satisfied to see that her words were finding an echo within Anand. Exactly, Anand. Freedom is not in finding an absolute truth, but in accepting the absurdity of existence and finding joy in the struggle. Life is not about reaching the top of the mountain. It is about the process of climbing. Anand felt a lightness he had never experienced before. He looked up at the vast, infinite sky, and for the first time, he did not feel the need to question. There were no answers up high, only the vast expanse of the unknown, and in that vastness, he found a sense of freedom. So, what should I do now? Anand asked, his voice softer, no longer desperate, but curious like a child seeing the world for the first time. Mati stood up and looked at the vast horizon, her gaze peaceful and unperturbed. Live, Anand. Live not as one seeking meaning, but as one who is alive, whole and complete. Embrace the absurdity of existence, and in doing so, you will find a joy that no answer can give you. Anand looked at Mati and smiled, not because he had found the answer, but because he no longer needed one. The rock was still there, waiting to be pushed, but now he would push it with joy, not because he expected it to stay at the top, but because he had learned to dance with it along the way. Anand felt a profound transformation inside him. The understanding that life did not have inherent meaning, but that he was free to create his own meaning, brought him a peace he had never known before. He looked at Mati with gratitude, realizing that she had given him an invaluable gift, the freedom to live without the need to seek external answers. Then, the meaning of life is something we create in each moment, with each breath, Anand said, his voice filled with a new clarity. It is not something we find, but something we choose. Mati nodded, her serene and wise smile unwavering. Yes, Anand. Life is a blank canvas, and you are the artist. You can paint whatever you want, create the story you desire. The beauty lies in the freedom of choice, in embracing the absurdity, and in the joy of living fully. Anand thought of all the moments in his life when he had felt lost and frustrated. He realized those moments had not been in vain. They were part of his journey, part of the process of learning and growing. Every book he had read, every ritual he practiced, every guru he followed, all of it had brought him to this point, where he finally understood that true freedom lay in accepting life as it is and creating his own meaning. "Thank you, Mati," Anand said, his voice filled with gratitude. "You have shown me a path I had never considered. Now, I understand that the search for meaning was the source of my suffering. Freedom lies in accepting life as it is and finding joy in the journey." Mati gently placed a hand on Anand's shoulder. "Remember, Anand, life is a dance. Dance with it, embrace it, and you will find a joy that no answer can give you. The meaning of life is something you create in each moment, with each breath." Anand looked at the vast, infinite sky, and for the first time, he did not feel the need to question. He felt light, as if the weight of the world had been lifted from his shoulders. The rock was still there, waiting to be pushed, but now he would push it joyfully, not because he expected it to stay at the top, but because he had learned to dance with it along the way. Anand rose, feeling a new energy coursing through his body. He looked at Mati with deep gratitude, knowing that she had given him an invaluable gift, the freedom to live without the need to seek external answers. With a serene smile, he bid farewell to Mati and began descending the mountain, each step lighter than the last. Upon reaching the village, Anand noticed that everything seemed different. The mountains, the desert, the people, everything had a new clarity, a beauty he had never noticed before. He was no longer bound by the search for meaning. Now he was free to live fully, to create his own meaning in each moment. Anand began to immerse himself more deeply in village life. He helped the elders, taught the children, and participated in festivities with renewed joy. Each act, no matter how small, held a new purpose. It was an expression of his freedom, of his choice to live fully. He found joy in the little things, in the simplicity of everyday life, and this brought him a peace he had never known. Anand's transformation did not go unnoticed. The villagers began to see the change in his behavior, the lightness in his spirit. He became a source of inspiration for many, showing that true freedom lies in accepting life as it is and finding joy in the journey. One day, while Anand sat by the river, watching the water flow, he thought of Mati and everything she had taught him. He smiled, knowing that the rock was still there, waiting to be pushed, but now he would push it with joy, dancing with it along the way. And so, Anand lived his days with new understanding and new freedom. He found meaning in the struggle itself, in the acceptance of the absurdity of existence, and in the joy of living fully. And in every moment, with every breath, he created his own meaning, dancing with life and finding joy in the journey. This is the final message. The meaning of life is not something we find, but something we create by living authentically and embracing the mystery. Find meaning in the struggle itself, in the acceptance of absurdity, and in the joy of living fully.